Welcome again. My name is Steve Lewis with Legacy Horn Experience. Continuing my conversation with uh, David Jolley, we're going to talk some about chamber music and some of his arrangements. Um, David, thanks for continuing to chat with us.
Thank you, Steve. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Um, the Brass Arts Trio, wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that and um, how that group came about.
Well, the trio came about a lot because I felt like I wanted to be in a brass group. I wanted to have a brass group, but the brass quintet is so developed and it's so developed along certain lines. And I thought a brass trio might be a little more of a blank slate. There might be a little more scope to just do things that I wanted to do or we wanted to do. Chaim Avitsur, I knew as a wonderful trombonist. I'd known him for many, many years. I first encountered him at Manus many years ago, and then he's just done great things since. And Joe Bergstaller, we had crossed paths a number of times over the years, and I always admired his sort of, well, I don't know if he would take umbrage if I say his non-trumpety qualities. I mean, to me,
Right.
he listens in a different way, and he approaches, not, he might really think this is nonsense, but to me, he approaches the trumpet in just a very different way than many people seem to. And so it was just wonderful playing with him and playing with Chaim. And the thing about a brass trio is it's a little more like solo playing than you think it will be. You think, well, it's three people. That's not so different from five, but it's actually very different from five. And it's closer to soloism, I think, than I expected when we first started out. I thought, oh well, three players, that's a good cushion. But there's very often in a brass trio when you don't feel that at all, and it's very delicate. It's very sort of gossamer, and it's a wonderful texture all its own. Now, I think it also presents some real challenges in a way, because if you're trying to transcribe something for trio, the issue of rest, oh heaven help us, when are we going to get some rest? And so many of the things that I've tried to do at first, just playing all the time, and you just couldn't put them in a concert. You couldn't program them. They were just too difficult. And for instance, there's an arrangement of so I went to look for what about music for one instrument or two instruments, like for solo violin or uh, things like that. And that actually led to an arrangement, which I don't think I've sent you this yet, but it's like the Bach chaconne for three
Oh,
brass instruments, which is a little crazy. It's a little crazy, but it's just such great music. It's just unbelievable. And so, but that was from the idea that, well, if one player can manage it on the violin, as hard as it is, maybe three brass players could. So it's sort of that kind of thinking, not trying to reduce a Schumann piano piece with seven interior voices, but going the other way, trying to find something for one instrument. And I myself had to experiment a lot. The symphonias of Bach, which you have put out, I think they're very successful because they work really nicely for brass instruments, and they're short. For Bach, they're very sort of short and straightforward, and they're just fantastic. And I think they make very good program openers. Till Eulenspiegel for three brass players is another one of those sort of crazy things. It's just crazy, from an orchestra of 110, and then Strauss himself did an arrangement for five, and
right.
that's actually the version that I worked from. So it was
Okay.
only medium crazy, right? So, so he cut the piece in half. It's 10 minutes long. And, but I mean, all the good stuff is there. And then like the horn part, you get the good horn parts, and then you get a few other things to play to that just sort of keep you from getting bored. You're not, you're not really bored during
No,
during
no, there's no danger of that.
no boredom. So and that's a lot of fun to play and quite challenging, but a lot of fun to play, I think. So I'm very glad that you're putting that out there, and that's just terrific. And um, I don't know. I mean, that's how I would talk about brass trio.
Yeah. So the other piece that I published for Brass Trio that you arranged, the Bartok
Oh,
Romanian folk dances.
that's right.
Um, those are at first they strike me as being fun pieces, but you look a little more carefully, and that's kind of demanding in a way.
It's true. The fifth movement, the sixth movement, they start to get pretty at least from my point of view, they start to get pretty tricky. And so they take some good practicing, but I think there even of more value is the way that they are very atmospheric. And so they ask us brass players to create atmospheres, like in the second small movement, the third short movement. What kind of colors are we really after with these odd octaves and muted effects and everything? And I think it's really challenging. It's you're trying not to sound like brass players during that piece so much, which I think is always an interesting exercise. Let's try and sound like a clarinet and a viola. Okay, like it's a real switching of gears, and trying to break down those you know brass kinds of
Right.
attitudes. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Um, I I want to ask you more generally about playing chamber music. Um, what attributes, qualities do you look for um, when you're working with people for the first time or forming a new group? What kind of people do you want to work with, and um, you know, hopefully give this will give some younger players some ideas of what kind of colleague they may want to strive to be.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I think um, a lot of, how to put it? I think a lot of, I mean, well, the first most direct answer is I'm looking for someone, even if it's not so conscious, I'm looking for someone who listens like crazy. I'm looking for somebody who listens even when they don't think they're listening. They're listening, and they respond to what you're doing. It's almost like they can't help themselves. They hear what you do, they've got to respond. That's what I learned early on, or I think I learned it. You just play, and you get these experiences. But I did have a lot of chamber music when I was a teenager, and sort of got addicted to it even before I knew I was addicted to it. But that quality of listening, when you play with somebody who's not just playing well, but they're listening like crazy at the same time, um, it you don't have to say much. Now, I'm a veteran. I'm a founding member of Orpheus. Now, Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, no conductor, plenty of talking, and over the years, I learned how to talk less and less and less. You just play. You just play what you think should happen. Now, if somebody takes offense at how you play, you can't really help that. If somebody doesn't like how you play, and it took me a long time to learn this, but you just sort of have to live with it. Some people don't like the way you play, but some people will hear what you're up to, and they will like it. And so I think that's the strongest argument for just playing the way you play, listening as hard as you can, but playing the way you have to play. And I really believe that, and I try and teach that way. But I think, because in a way it's more important to listen than it is to play. If you just set about playing and you're not really listening to your colleague or whatever, it's like, well, that's a little boring, and you're in your own world. But the minute you start listening to what that other person is up to, it adds a texture, and it adds it starts to add dimensions to it that just go on and on and on forever. So, I mean, I think chamber music is very often the sort of the poor relation in between orchestra and soloism. And it's like in schools, it's so hard to get chamber music going and keep it going. You sort of have to stand there with a whip and, get people to do it. They don't even know what they're getting from it.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know what I was getting from it when I was a teenager, but you just know it's really going to get people listening, and they're going to hear things they just didn't know to listen for before. And so I think it's just such a vital part of the training and the life of a musician, right? Sometimes people think, oh, chamber music is just, I mean, maybe in winds and brass, it's like, oh, well, it's just sort of, that's nice, but it's not so serious. For string players, of course, or pianists, it's very serious. But I think for winds and brass, it just always, to get it to be more serious and more meaningful and just existing on more levels, that game is always there. That's how I think of it.
Yeah, I think about my own experiences, and chamber music is always the most challenging thing musically, both from the aspect of technical proficiency and like you're saying, listening. I mean, what it demands of you, what it demands of one's ear is pretty incredible. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think whether you're playing duets with another horn player, or you're playing in a brass quintet, wind quintet, or you have some other group that's sort of an oddball group, hopefully. Um, I mean, I've always been in about 3 chamber groups, always, one or another, a wind
Yeah.
group, a brass group, another kind of group. And I really think, you want to have as many groups as you can handle as you're going all through. And like if you play, I mean, if you play Beethoven's sonata with one pianist, and then you play Beethoven's sonata with another pianist, you're going to get a lesson in Beethoven from them.
Right.
And if you play Brahms trio with one violinist, and then you play it with another violinist, if you're trying to match that violinist, what they are up to, you're going to get a lesson in bow technique, and you're going to get a lesson in tone, and you're going to, again, it takes you out of yourself, and you maybe out of your, gives you more colors on your instrument. So it's all, just how to refresh all the time.
Yeah. Great. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me about chamber music and sharing your experiences with us, and all this great music you've arranged. And it sounds like we're going to be doing even more things. So
Oh yes, I'll keep those shipments coming, and I really appreciate what you're up to. I think it's, for all of us, it's really something you're doing. So bravo to you, and thank you.
thank you. Thank you.